All right, man. Yeah, man. It was a long day today, man. But
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited, guys.
Yeah.
I've been talking about this show for a couple weeks now. Brandon, I was live on Facebook about a couple weeks, and I was asking people, hey, what do you guys think that we should talk about, or what do you guys think I should talk about on the show? And somebody, I think it was a young lady by the name of Sheree McDonald, one of my classmates. Shout out to Sheree. She was like, Black men and mental health in the Black community.
Mhm.
I said, you know what? That's great because I have a health professional that I deal with. So let me introduce this brother and let's do it right because I want to make sure that people understand who we have on the show tonight. We're gonna bless some people tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, I have Brandon Jones. Brandon is the executive director of Minnesota's Association for Children's Mental Health and consultant. He specializes in adverse childhood experiences, historical and intergenerational trauma, social emotional intelligence, leadership, and intercultural development inventory. My brother Brandon holds a BA in sociology from the University of Minnesota, a master's in community psychology from Metropolitan State University, a master's in psychotherapy from Alder Graduate School. Brandon is also a 2013 Bush Foundation Leadership Fellow.
Yeah.
He lives by the motto, live life with purpose, on purpose.
Yep.
Welcome to the show, Brandon. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing well, man. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Listen, when I first decided to have this show, and I'm gonna jump on live on my Facebook because I want people to make sure that they don't miss this live.
Yeah.
When we first started talking about having the show, my producer and I, we was like, absolutely, man. And now is the time. Now is the time to have this conversation.
Yeah.
So let me see. It's funny because I titled this show "Get Your Head in the Game."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so many different things we're going to talk about tonight, but we want to make sure that we have a discussion, flush some things out, so we can all move forward.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, what's going on, Nina? I see you. How you doing, Nina? Let me welcome the people to the show. Billy, what's going on, Billy? How you guys doing, man? And like I said, man, make sure y'all hit that like and subscribe button because the content that we're going to be talking about, we're going to continue to get better as we go on. The information, the content, it's only going to get better. And the reason why we started this show is to serve others. That's what we want to do. No matter what age or stage you're in your life, whether it's business, entrepreneurship, relationship, mental health, we want to bring on people who are experts in their fields. And like I said, if you guys missed the intro, Brandon is an expert in the mental health field. We're going to be having this conversation tonight.
Yeah.
It's going to be fire, man. So y'all make sure y'all like and hit that subscribe button. Hold on, give me just a second, Brandon.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time.
Let's see. You have a good day, man?
Yeah, for the most part, I had a good day. My children are on spring break. So, they taking advantage of that being at home all day.
Are y'all on spring break already?
Yeah, for my school district. They do it the first full week of March in the district that we're in. And for folks, so that people know, I'm located in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. I'm actually born and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. Usually when I used to tell folks that, they used to think that there were no Black folks here. They would just thought it was Kevin Garnett, Kirby Puckett, and Adrian Peterson. But they definitely got Black folks up here. We've been up here for quite some time.
That's right. Let them know, man. Let them know. There's been a lot of stuff going on in Minnesota.
Yeah, we are ground zero for everything racial injustice. It really kicked off where with more national with Philando Castile, but we had even several other police shootings beyond that, Philando's, and then George Floyd, which is what was kind of like the straw that broke the camel's back for so many people, which happened in this summer of 2020, and then we followed up George Floyd, unfortunately, with oh man, I almost said Jamar Clark, but that was one before Dante Wright, and then unfortunately after Dante Wright, we just had Amir Locke. So we have had several incidents of these shootings that have gone viral from police departments located here in the Twin Cities. And somebody like myself who also does get involved in the more political space, I've elevated to a level where I talk to governments about these things as well. And being a voice and being somebody at a table that a lot of us don't get to try to make sure that we get proper just due in these spaces. It's not easy, but it's something that does need to be done.
Man. So hey, what's going on? Welcome, Tony. How you doing? Let's see who else we got. Fred, what's going on, Fred? I see you. Again, we have Brandon Jones. He's a mental health expert. We're going to be having this conversation tonight. I'm going to start the show off like no other. Listen, what's going on, Megan? Megan Hill, my beautiful wife.
What's up, Megan?
What's going on? So I'm going to start the show off, Brandon, like I've never started off any show.
Sure.
Listen, Brandon, I want to say thank you, brother, because growing up in a single parent household around the environment that I grew up in, I didn't know that I needed someone like you. So a few years ago, when I had reached out, it was a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
And I know in the Black community, or as a Black man, we live and we try to do our best, and we put on this game face day in and day out, not really realizing the stress that we're under. And that the reason why I want to reach out, because I knew it was something going on, but I couldn't put a finger on it. I couldn't exactly have the words to express exactly what I needed. But brother, let me tell you, man, working with you these last few years, man, has made a great impact in my life, in my family. And now I get the opportunity to share this platform with you, because I wouldn't be here without the things that we've worked through together. So I want to say, before we even get started, I want to say thank you, Brandon.
Hey, absolutely, man. I always tell people I'm a resource. I didn't get all them fancy degrees for nothing, man. And I matched that work with life experience. And I think that's what gives me kind of a unique advantage, and being able to see people for who they are. Because honestly, I'm not supposed to be where I'm at. Given all the research and the statistics out there, I am not supposed to be nowhere near where I'm at. But with folks who've been able to see gifts that I have and talents that I have and look out for me and encourage me to keep pushing forward, I always felt like that's what helped me get to where I'm at. And honestly, I don't feel like I've achieved anything, to be completely honest. I feel like there's so much more to go. And I just always try to give back and connect with folks. So when you reached out, I was like, I ain't really doing therapy these days, man, but I'll find some time for you. And we stuck with it. We've been consistent. We definitely have done some good work together. So,
man, man. I tell people all the time, man, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, listen, I'm live on my Facebook, but guys, I'm live on YouTube, Jarvis Hill Projector. We're having a conversation tonight about mental health. So make sure you jump on YouTube, because I'm gonna be on Facebook for a couple more minutes, but I want you guys to jump on YouTube. Man, the biggest thing that I understand, I tell people all the time, invest in yourself. Whether that's physical activity, and it's more so outside, but we forget to do the inside work, man. We got to get the head in the game, man. And having that investment in yourself, man, it just makes you feel so good. And because you don't think that something is wrong until you have a conversation. I was talking to somebody earlier, they was like, man, I didn't realize I had something wrong. Start talking to a mental health professional, and then all of a sudden now I'm crying about things that I thought was really strong. Yep. So you just don't know, man. That's why you got to have these conversations and be open about it.
Absolutely.
At this point, like, I don't know who else that I've seen out in this space where they've brought on their own personal, therapist or counselor. And I'm ready to have this conversation because it's made me stronger. I'm okay with this, you know what I'm saying? And I know other people are dealing with the same thing.
Yeah.
In different ways, right? We all have our different ways of dealing with it and coping with it. But I want to have this conversation, man, so we can really help some people.
Yeah. Well, one of the biggest things that most people deal with that we don't necessarily think about is stress. And most people don't master their stress. They let stress master them and dictate to them how they should operate their lives. And most of the folks, in my career, I've probably seen maybe about 1,200 clients, patients, whether that's couples, adolescents, which is my real go-to. That's my heart, is dealing with young people, older adults, group work. I've probably seen about 1,200 if I factor in all the work that I've done over the years. Yeah. And I would probably say about 85 to 90% of those folks did not manage their stress very well. They had other life things that have happened, but that stress management piece is so critical. And when you talk about being successful, being a serial entrepreneur, hell, just being an entrepreneur, period, with one business, it comes with a lot of stress, self-doubt, insecurities. You got to learn how to forgive, because you expect folks to show up for you and then they don't, and then you got to change the way that you operate with them. Or you try to put somebody on that you really care about and they don't understand the ins and outs of the business, and then they flip on you, and then they looking at you like you crazy, and you like, dang, I'm trying to put you on. These are the things that happen to people all the time, especially us as Black folks, because we have not been cultivated to really have a business mindset. But especially in the last 50 to 60 years, we've been cultivated to do what? Get a good job, get a house, be happy, and shut up. And that's not necessarily where we're at in today's time.
That's right.
In this economy where we're at right now, it's about hustle. It's about gigs. Get as many as you can and keep it pushing. Which is funny, because that's what we've been doing collectively for quite some time, and now it's pop culture. It's in the mainstream. Is the gig economy. But we also have the other thing that we have to face too, which is AI, artificial intelligence. So we're combating against robots and jobs that have their own levels of insecurities, racism, which is also part of a lot of this too. So we have to make sure that our minds are sharp, our stress levels are low, so that we can get our heads in the game. Because right now, a lot of us are on the field looking in the stands, and we about to get blindsided.
Man, so listen, Brandon, I keep this during the show because I like to take notes, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna just put this one down for the night, and I'm just gonna be a student because it's gonna be Brandon Jones takeover tonight. Listen, so mental health.
Yeah.
That's obviously a big buzzword nowadays, right? And I feel like it just came on the scene, especially in the Black community. It's a buzzword. But my first question is, are people really starting to really go and get help from professionals, or we still just start to have the conversation?
Both.
Okay.
People are having more conversations, and we can thank folks who are not mental health professionals. Like, I think one of the biggest influences for a lot of younger urban Black community folks is the Breakfast Club. Like Charlemagne talking about mental health so much, I've noticed that has made an increase. When I ask people, have you ever gone to a therapist before? And they tell me no. And then I ask them, well, what got you thinking about this? They say, I heard it in this song, or I heard it from Charlemagne, or I heard it on a podcast, and I heard it from this influencer or whoever. And I think that has created a big push. The other big push that happened was during COVID. A lot of people, not just Black folks, but a lot of people said, I need to get help because the way that I'm feeling is not right. And right now, all across this country, actually, I would say all across most Western nations, we're seeing an influx of people seeking out therapy, and the field is not ready. We don't have enough clinicians. So we have a demand of people who are coming in, and the supply is not ready. And we've known the supply hasn't been ready for years. And it's just unfortunate that COVID happened and just really pushed us probably about 5 years ahead of time to where we need to go. There's a lot of things happening in this mental health world right now. One of those things is also the combination between mental health and chemical dependency. So these two fields are merging together in what's called co-occurring disorders. So people are seeing therapists not just to deal with mental health issues, but also chemical dependency issues as well. So with the opioid epidemic that is happening, that has increased a lot of folks seeking out treatment as well.
Listen, man, this is gonna be a powerful conversation, guys. This show is from the community for the community. Yeah. And what I mean by that, Brandon, is I went out, these questions that I'm gonna be asking you tonight, I went out solicited from the community. So this is for the community, from the community. So, and then we're going to be taking questions in the chat. So if you guys have questions in the chat, I'm live on Facebook. I'm about to jump off of Facebook. But again, if you guys jump on here, we're live talking to a mental health expert, Brandon Jones, on Jarvis Hill Projected. Check it out. I gotta tap in because this conversation is about to get too good, man. So if you check me out on Facebook, come live on YouTube right now. Peace. All right, Brent. Hey, Brent, I appreciate you, man, being patient with me as we was trying to make sure that everybody get hold of this information, this content. So
yeah, absolutely.
So there's been a stigma, right? We already know it's a stigma in the mental health in the Black community.
Yeah,
mental health is now. I kind of touched on a little bit. Mental health is now like a hot button topic, and you already kind of addressed some of this question. But when you go out and seek a mental health counselor, is it important for cultural competence for mental health clinician when serving? They said in the question, people of color or Black people. Is there any value or significant or otherwise for Black males to have black male therapists available for them?
That's a great question. I would say it depends on the issue. Cultural competence is important, but cultural competence is really just a mindset. What I would rather people have is what I call cultural intelligence, which is how you function with people from different cultural backgrounds. I can be culturally competent all day, but if I'm uncomfortable and I don't know how to work with you, or I don't understand your lingo or what you really are saying to me, I can do you a disservice. So if you are looking for somebody who's culturally competent, you only gonna get half of the pie that you're really trying to get served. Now, let me give you a quick story. When I used to do therapy at this smaller clinic here in South Minneapolis. Shout out to Kente Circle; those are my people. And the model they have there is called dual therapy, and which means that you have an intern who's somebody who's still going through school; they're getting their hours, and then you have an actual paid staff person doing therapy with an individual or family together. So you have the benefit of having two therapists at one time, which is pretty dope. And one time I was paired with one of the interns who was a young white woman. She was probably in her late 20s or so. And it was pretty funny because we were dealing with this grandma and she was the caregiver for her grandson. And this little boy was 13, but he looked like he was about 17 years old, a little stocky little dude, right? And this is like the first session. So we're doing what's called a diagnostic assessment. And if you ever go to therapy, those first two sessions you usually have with the therapist, they're asking you a bunch of, prodding questions. They're just doing what's called a diagnostic assessment, which is just trying to get a history and some context for what's going on for you so they can give you an official diagnosis. So we're doing this. And the grandma got to a point where she said, you know what? I could just kill this boy. This boy just getting on my damn nerves all the time. I could just kill this boy. And we just went on, I heard it. I just kept moving. And after the session, the intern comes up to me and she's like, Brandon, we got to call child protection. We got to call child protection. She said she's going to kill him. Why didn't you say anything, Brandon? And I'm looking at this young white woman like, what the hell is wrong with her? But then I realized, like, oh, she don't get it. When grandma's saying I could just kill this boy, she's not saying I'm about to strangle him when we get home. She's just talking about how she's fed up. He is getting on her nerves. She don't know what else to do. And this is kind of like her final result is to come to us to hopefully give her some options on how to better get his behavior in the right order. But without that cultural information for me, if this young white woman was with maybe, let's say, another white counselor, or maybe somebody who wasn't black, they would have called child protection and grandma would have had a whole nother heap of issues. That's just right. By not understanding the lingo and the history of what happens in our communities. It's important to make sure. Now, I would say she was somewhat culturally competent, but she didn't have cultural intelligence. She didn't know how to connect those dots when she needed to. And luckily, she had somebody like me who just knows things to help her do that. So, yes, is it important for folks to be culturally competent? Sure, to a certain extent. What they do with that competence is more important. The second half of that question was about the importance of having black male therapists for black boys. I think it's very important, but it's a slippery slope. Because I can tell you from experience, I've become the pseudo father, the pseudo older brother, the pseudo uncle, the pseudo everything. And I'm just a therapist. I can't do all those jobs and fill in all those gaps for every young black boy that comes into my office and to work with me. So that's a slippery slope. But does that young boy need that role model and responsibility? Yes.
Yeah.
But when the expectation is for me to fill up all those gaps and I can't, I could be letting this young man down and the parent or caregiver involved because they expect me to do things that's technically not my responsibility as a therapist. And what ultimately can end up happening is that therapeutic bond can be jeopardized because mom is expecting me or grandma or whoever is expecting me to show up a particular way that I can't because I'm only a therapist. I have to utilize my skill set to help this young man go from point A to point B to the best of my ability. And that doesn't mean playing, stepdaddy or older brother or uncle or anything like that. So it's important to understand that this is a distinct role that can't do it all. The other issue with having black males be the representative or be the therapist for black boys, the problem is there's not enough of us. We're damn near unicorns. Like we barely exist. So if you are waiting for a black male therapist, your son may not be getting the help that he needs. Sometimes I've had to refer young black boys to other types of therapists, women, things like that, who specialize in particular things to help them. It's best to find a therapist that specializes in the need of your child than just someone who looks like them. So just be very careful with that. Like, yeah, I wish I had an army of black male therapists, but hell, Black men ain't really in tune with our emotions in general, and so becoming a therapist for a lot of us is something we don't even consider. So it's hard. I wish I had an army behind me. I wish
Yeah,
I could easily cultivate 100 black men to be therapists, and we get in every major city. I would love that, but it's difficult because that's just not where a lot of black men are, and a lot of that's due to how we grow up and things of that nature. So it's best if you have a young man who's struggling with depression or has anxiety issues or has anger issues, find a specialist in that area and try to get that black boy with them. The level of cultural competence may be important, but it might not be as important as the skill set to deal with the issue.
that's right, man. That was heavy. So we're gonna take our first question from the chat, Brandon.
Mm-hmm.
So you talked about the grandma and the grandson. This is kind of touching on that because it's talking about family. It says, why is it difficult for Black families to discuss the importance of mental health?
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Yeah. Good question, Tony. Thanks for giving it to us. It's hard because the reason why Black families don't talk about mental health is shame. A lot of the problems that people have when it comes to mental health stems from family dynamics. And if I have to go to a stranger and tell all the deep, dark secrets in our family, that is very shameful. And if we want to take another step further, a lot of times Black folks who do become therapists and they stay in their where they grow up, they know a lot of these families. So then I got to tell the deep, dark secret to Brandon, who's also from the same community I'm from, which means now he's going to know about Uncle Johnny touching me, or he's going to know about the domestic violence that happened in my home, or he's going to know about how, I used to beat on my younger sibling, and that's shameful to the family. Or we might go to the same church, or we might do the same thing. So it becomes this shame-based kind of avoidance that we have towards therapy. Some of the other reasons why we steer away, and you mentioned stigma earlier. One, talk therapy was never created for Black people. It wasn't even created for white folks. It was created for affluent white men. Most people don't know that.
Wow.
Therapy was created for if you had the dough to talk to somebody. Now, psychiatry was created for people who were deemed to be dumb and lame and useless eaters. Like, these are the terms that used to be utilized in research studies and stuff. So if you were somebody who was schizophrenic, which they would have called something else back in the day, you would go to the asylum, which is AKA the nut house. And you will have all these crazy things right now, all these trials and these devices, and they would do heinous things to people. And asylums are really just like mental health clinics, but mixed with prisons. That's pretty much what it was. So when you talk about talk therapy, that was only for men who were using philosophy and things like that to try to understand the world. They weren't giving a care about nobody else. It changed in, I would say, the 50s and 60s. It started to make a shift because it started to have a shift in how academics approaches psychotherapy. I'm not going to go too deep into the history, but do know that when therapy started to open up for everybody is when insurance companies got involved, which was in the 80s. So when insurance gets involved, that is follow the money. Always follow the money. That's how it opened up. So then when they started to get medical assistant dollars for payments for therapy, that's when it's for everybody. Because if you poor and you on that government assistance, come on in, because guess what? That's guaranteed what? Guaranteed dollars. It ain't going to be much, but it's better than nothing. So that's what ended up happening. The other reasons why we have a stigma for mental health is we have a stigma in our community for every damn thing that's healthy. We don't want to eat healthy. We don't want to go to the doctor unless we bleeding out of our mouths. We don't want to exercise. We don't want to go to sleep when we need to go to sleep. We don't want to stretch. We don't want to do anything healthy. So why would we do something mentally when we feel that we are the most mentally tough people in the United States? Why would we go talk to somebody else? We feel that we are as resilient as anyone else. We say things like that. We used to call our culture the struggle. And if our culture was a struggle and we're still here, I'm tougher than you mentally. That's how we have approached things for so long. But we're starting to see, and we say things like, what? Black don't crack. Well, hell, maybe not on the outside, but on the inside, it can get very damaged very quickly. And we have to take care of ourselves. And we start to see people breaking down the way that we see them do today. So, and another reason, there's two more reasons.
Oh, you good? Go ahead.
One, insurance, or let me back up. Therapy is expensive. Let me not get it misconstrued. It does cost to go to therapy. Now, if you can find somebody like me who's like, I'm just doing it because I just do it, it could be a little cheaper, but honestly, your average therapy session can run. I mean, at this point now, it's probably about $185 per session, on average. On average. Now, there's some people who have sliding fee scales and things like that, but at the end of the day, it's expensive. And if you're paying out of pocket, it's even more expensive. So that's another thing that we don't always talk about is how expensive therapy is.
That's right.
And then also there's just not enough people that look like us in the field, which is one of my goals, is to help people kind of get into this field. But there's just not enough of us. And if we don't see Black people doing stuff, we usually tend to stay away from it because we see it to be as for somebody else or for white folks or whoever. So we just stay out of it. And traditionally, we've kind of had therapeutic activities and stuff in our community. But when our community started to be ripped apart and we lost neighborhoods and just became hoods, we lost that communal feel. And a lot of those healing practices that we had have just vanished because we don't trust one another. We used to have aunties and grandmas and neighbors who were the social workers and the therapists and came with the healing remedies and looking out for one another and doing things. But we lost when we lost we started to lose it in the 60s and the 70s, and in the 80s it was pretty much a wrap, and we haven't been able to recover since. So that's really what's going on in our community. So when we talk about stigma, it's not a fear of mental health. There's several things that have taken place that have gotten us away from it. I do think we're coming back, but it's a long journey back to getting that healing.
Man, that was heavy. That was heavy because you dropped a lot of facts and a lot of different things. And when you said that, therapy wasn't really for Black people, right? It was for the affluent, right, or the philosophers to have those conversations, to philosophize about whatever they were talking about.
Right.
Why do you don't think we help each other today, right? We talk about the crab in the bucket mentality. Is that where they're stemming from? What is we know the result, but we know the effect, but what's the cause? Why don't we help each other, right? Why don't we band together and pull our resources together to help elevate one another?
The easy answer is we just don't trust each other. And we don't trust each other because we've been conditioned not to. I don't want to say we've always been suspicious of one another, but when you're suspicious of somebody, but you're forced to be with them, you can't make that change. Over time, with integration, we've been able to leave the community. So folks have been able to go and live in other spaces and do other things, even with redlining. I know we talk about redlining a lot. Even with redlining, there were escapes and opportunities for you to disconnect from the community. And that just created more distrust of each other. And our level of distrust is what keeps us from building. Our men don't trust our women don't trust our men don't trust our men, and our women don't trust our women. And at that very crux of things, since we don't trust one another, we can't build anywhere. It really starts from that foundational place of just rapport building amongst one another. Black folks don't network very well. Black folks don't really show up for one another very well. We will fight each other very quickly, though. And there's a reason for that. So that crab in a barrel mentality, yeah, and I've heard the analogy, well, crabs ain't supposed to be in a barrel. That is very true. We're not supposed to be in the system that we're in either. But that doesn't mean that we can't have to pull one another, apart. The environment does dictate a lot of behaviors, but your intelligence can dictate what you do in the environment. We're not being intelligent about the things that we do.
Woo, man!
Better than crabs, by the way. We're way more smarter than crabs.
Way more. Listen, we have a few more questions because I promised my brother Brandon that I wasn't going to retain him long tonight.
Hey, man, we can keep rolling if you want to.
Listen, so we have some questions popping up in the chat, and I got some questions here. But I think what's more important, the people who jumped on, I'm gonna go ahead and funnel your questions up first. So I got a question from Nick Dangerfield. What are signs to watch for if someone has mental health issues or dealing with anxiety or stress, but they're trying to manage it well? What are some signs?
Yeah, typically, when someone's dealing with mental health issues, when they start to have behaviors that are way extreme than what their normal day-to-day is. So, for example, if you start to notice that someone's starting to sleep a lot more than they normally sleep, or sleep a lot less than they normally sleep, or you see these drastic changes in people's appetites, or you might see people who are isolating even more, or sometimes you may even see their anxiety levels rise, so they get very uncomfortable, or their behaviors start to get a little bizarre with normal things that they normally do, like going outside or going to like Target or Walmart, and next thing you know, they're like, shaking or sweating really heavy, and you're like, what's going on with you? Like, you cool? They might say they're all right, but you can physically see that their body's trembling. Like, when you start to see those extremes, usually that's when you can tell that something's going on, that's a mental health concern. And it's important for us, I should have did this earlier, make a distinction between emotional health and mental health. Emotional health, we all deal with emotional health issues all the time. Everybody has a level of anxiety. Many of us will have some level of depressive symptoms. That's just a part of life. Things go well for us, sometimes things don't, and that's just what happens. Mental health is when your emotional and cognitive state. So your emotional state is how you feel, your cognitive state is how you think. When those things are in jeopardy and you can't do the things that you want to do, you need to do, or that you normally do. All right. So you want to do
Wow.
something. I want to get up and go to the park. I need to. I need to get up and go to work. I have a desire to, or I should to, the things I want to. I want to connect and go out dating. If you are running into mental barriers that are preventing you from doing things like that, that's when you're sliding into that mental health space and you probably should talk to somebody. So when you start to notice that you can't do the things you normally do, connect with the people that you normally connect with, maybe you want to isolate from your kids a little bit more than the norm and you're just like, I don't even want to think about them. That's when you're starting to slide into that mental health zone. And a lot of people get there with extreme stressors, when they don't have a lot of social support, when they don't have a lot of resources, they can find themselves in that area of mental health pretty quickly.
Wow. Okay. I got another question coming from Cheryl Carter.
Yep.
Actually, this is perfect because it was something that you just touched on a second ago. Do
Yep.
you recommend, Brandon, utilizing employee assistance programs? And is your information actually private?
Great question. So both of these questions are good. So the first question, absolutely use EAP. As someone who's an executive director, I practically have to beg my staff to use EAP. I pay for it, use it. Like it's not. I don't want to say it's free therapy, but it's that no cost of you. So utilize it, especially if it's something where you just want to test out therapy and see how it goes. Definitely use that. I think most EAP programs give you anywhere between 3 to 6 sessions of therapy,
That's right.
depending on what you do. So I definitely recommend that you utilize that, and don't be afraid to fire a therapist. For some reason, Black folks have this thing about I don't feel like telling my story again, but we tell all our business on Facebook all day. So I don't understand why we do this. Just go use the EAP. It is okay. Burn up that money that your organization's already paying for anyway. You might as well go there and get that experience, and get that no cost to you therapy. Now, is your information really private? This is a very, very good question. I would say yes and kind of no. Now, is your information private? To a certain extent, yes, because all mental health clinics are under oath to maintain your private, maintain your information, make sure your information is private. Everything is for the most part confidential. We have HIPAA laws that we have to deal with, or even FERPA, depending on the setting that you're doing the therapy in. And those things by law are supposed to keep your information private. But there will be other people who will come in contact with your information. For example, if I work in a clinic with other therapists, there's a good chance that I will talk to them to have what's called consultation about you and what's going on with you, to help me deal with what's going on and make sure that I'm thinking correctly about the level of treatment that I'm offering to you as a client. So that way your information technically doesn't stay private because it's being shared within a particular space. Another document that gets created that can be shared medically is called a diagnostic assessment. I mentioned that earlier. The diagnostic assessment can be transferred from a clinic to a hospital, or a hospital to a clinic, vice versa. It doesn't necessarily like follow you around. Now, there are some electric medical record systems that do code those, but they're only good for 7 years. So you do have a living record of your mental health diagnosis. But there are a lot of laws in place that are supposed to protect you as a person, that does not inhibit you from getting jobs or going to school or getting other types of resources because you have a mental health diagnosis. As quiet as it's kept, a lot of jobs will prefer you to have a mental health diagnosis because they get a little bit of a kickback, and they get a little bit less on taxes to have you as a staff with a quote unquote mental health diagnosis and or disability, depending on what your diagnosis is. So don't be afraid to have a mental health diagnosis and think that it's 1970 and that's going to end your career, because it's not.
Man, listen, one of my favorite quotes, Brandon, is the great Maya Angelou. Once you know better, you do better. Family, this information is so powerful. I'm seeing you guys put in chat powerful, great information. Give Brandon some thumbs up. I don't know, like on YouTube, thumbs up, heart, whatever.
Yeah,
Man.
like the video, like and share the video for my man Jarvis.
Like and share the video. And I got a couple more questions for you, man. And I told you I went to the community and I was asking the community, what question would you want to ask? And this question kept bubbling up. Mm-hmm. So I got to ask it, Brandon. Why is it when Black men achieve a certain level of success, they go out and get not a sister, they go out and get someone else outside of a Black woman? What's going on with it? They don't know.
Now, I don't know what this got to do with mental health, but I think it sheds light on the mental health of the people who are asking this question. Now, honestly, though, I'm not going to be Kevin Samuels, even though I've talked to Kevin several times about several different things. But what I would say is this. The reason why a lot of Black men end up with Black women, are we talking about professional Black men per se?
Professional or any Black man.
Any Black man. All right, let's just
achieve a certain level of success, right? One who has, let's just money, right? One who has money in the bank and high success.
They trying to get Brandon canceled. All right, so this is what's gonna happen. Now I'm married. I live in Minnesota. I'm married to a Black woman. A lot of people don't believe that because here in Minnesota, I don't know if we're like the epicenter for interracial relationships, but when you are a professional Black man, the expectation is that you do not have a Black wife or partner at all. It's a weird dynamic we have here. Like people used to ask me, like, "Is your wife?" Like, they always whisper, "Is your wife Black?" Like, yeah, she Black. Like, yeah, she Black. Her name Monica. Like, I don't think she's gonna get any blacker than that, bro. So, but that's how it is here. I mean, we got a lot of interracial relationships. It's pretty wild. But the reason why a lot of quote unquote successful or achieving Black men end up with white women is proximity. That's the number one reason. When you are going, I have 3 degrees. Okay. I have 3 degrees from 3 predominantly white institutions. There ain't nothing but, and I'm in a field that's full of white women. Mental health, social services, it ain't nothing but white. I mean, there's other people, but for the most part, it's probably like 75% white women. So the odds are in my favor. Plus, white women are very forward with Black men. If they want you, they coming for you and they letting it be known. And it's almost like young dudes on the street. For some of these white women, it's on site. If they want you and you available, they'll give it to you right there. It's very easy. I don't say they're easy, but for the most part, it's very easy to get white women. Now, a lot of Black women are like, well, why don't you get the best looking ones? Because usually they're already taken. Let's just be honest. Sometimes we get the scraps as Black men when it comes to white women. But to be honest with you, I went to the University of Minnesota. I didn't play football in college, but I knew all the football players. And I looked like a football player because I was a football player in high school. So my level of access to white women was just wild. I mean, I was surprised. And to be honest with you, when I went to college, I was scared to date white women because I watched Rosewood. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. I was not on white girls like that. I never really was. Now, did I dibble and dabble in college and face my fears? Yes, I did. But just to be completely honest, but it took me like a year and a half. Like literally, it was like late in the sophomore year. I'm like, all right, let me just try and see what this thing is. But I was terrified, man. But man, I had so many opportunities, and literally, like the first week of school, man, it was just like it was available, and that same pattern carried on beyond school, even professionally. I go to conferences or trainings or working in buildings where there's like 300 people in the building. Them white women, they want to make you their Black work husband and all types of stuff, man. They bring you gifts and food and they want to give you little massages on the side. Like they make it very evident that if they want you, they coming for you. And that's just real. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's going to be a one to talk about. In the
that's a whole nother discussion.
Man, so we'll have you back on just flush that out some more in proximity because that's what
proximity is the number one thing. They out there.
Couple more questions, then we gonna wrap it up, Brandon. First off, thank you to everybody who's joined tonight. I see you, man. Nick Dangerfield, Cheryl. I got my brother Depp in here, man. Shannon McGuire. I appreciate you guys joining and being a part of this show. So switching gears on you real quick. What issues we deal with because of our parents? And I think the person who was asking that question, you may know, but let me see if I can give some context around what they may have been asking is, my grandmother did a certain thing a certain way. My mother did a certain thing a certain way. then I am now doing those certain things a certain way without even realizing it may be a detriment to me or it may be something benefit. But take that question how you will and give us what you've been giving us all night, which is the expert advice.
Yeah. So this is the definition of a self-defeating behavior. Something that worked at one particular point in time that was continuing to be done and does not work at this current particular time. And in the Black community, a lot of the things that are dysfunctional when it comes to family dynamics are self-defeating behaviors, things that have been passed on from one generation to the next, and so on. And at one point in time, it was probably necessary, like beating the hell out of our kids so that they are keeping themselves safe when they're out in the community. At one point in time, that was necessary. You don't need to beat the hell out of your kids today in order to keep them safe from all the traps that are out there outside of the home. But a lot of us have kept that practice because we didn't develop any other parenting skills when it came to disciplining our children. Or we were told things like, oh, that's what white people do with their kids. Like, we have to evolve with our parenting just like we evolve with everything else. Now, what do our parents pass down to us? They pass culture to us and they pass genetics. Now, there's a word I'm going to drop on you all. You can go Google this later, called epigenetics. And epigenetics in a nutshell is the genetic features that your parents pass on to you. And one of those features, one of those things called an epigenome, is your stress hormones. So a parent, both the mom and the dad actually, can pass on their stress hormones onto their child. So your babies are born in stress. You wondering why little Maya and little Jerome Jr. is crying and just, all fussy, and you spoiling that baby. No, that baby's dealing with some damn stress that it had when you was like, when you were pregnant with them or before you got pregnant with them, that is carried over through utero onto that little baby. And that baby's crying out because it's dealing with the stressors and the anxiety that was passed on genetically from that baby. And plus the environments that the baby is developing in as well. There's always a lot of noise, TVs on, music, people arguing, stuff like that. Like that, those babies are responding to those things. So there's an epigenetic thing. And then there's the cultural things too. So we teach our children how to survive in this world, this white supremacy that we live in, and this anti-blackness, which is one we don't talk about enough, but we really be trying to teach people how to survive anti-blackness more than dealing with white folks. We really teach, when we talk about having to talk with our kids, we talk about the police, but we don't never talk about having to talk dealing with other Black people, because that's a longer talk than dealing with the police, but we never talk about it, but it's the truth. And that creates a level of stress as well for young people who are developing, and they develop the mindset and the worldview of how to navigate this scary world around them, even when that threat isn't even there. We still do that all the time. And yes, a lot, I see Cheryl saying families are divided. A lot of families are divided because of old mentalities and not being able to have levels of forgiveness and proper ways to grieve in families, and we hold on to all these old pains and we pass that on to our kids too. Oh, don't be talking to auntie so-and-so, or we don't deal with them. That's your dad's side of the family. That's your mom's side of the family. And it's stuff that ain't got nothing to do with the kids. The kids can be fine, but you got your own beef and grief and gripe with this other people that doesn't happen in 1996, and you still mad at them in 2022. That's how a lot of us are. We have some serious healing that needs to be done, intergenerational healing that needs to be done for our babies to have another outcome. And it's not dealing with the police, it's dealing with ourselves. And somehow we have just decided to let that go and let somebody else raise our children. There's no one responsible for Black children but Black adults. And we have to do better for these kids, because these kids right now, they are showing us and telling us, oh, you ain't gonna look out for us? Well, it's the wild, wild west. Carjackings are up, shootings are up everywhere, domestic events. There's a school shooting every day in the Black community. Don't believe me? Google it. There's a school shooting every day in every urban Black community. Google that. I'm not joking. We talk about, I'm just gonna go off on a tangent real quick. We talk about police killing folks, killing Black folks. Do you know how many murders, Black on Black murders, that are happening to kids, to women, to young people every day in most of your urban centers across the nation? It is astounding that we get mad at things that are so trivial, like Amazon selling white privilege cars. Literally, Black Lives Matter in New York is protesting Amazon right now for selling white privilege cars. Meanwhile, we got bodies dropping like flies in most of the Black neighborhoods in New York, but nobody's mad about that because it's been normalized. That you talk about mental health, that's a mental disorder itself, where death is normalized for your kids not to see 18. That's okay. That's when I talk about doing community healing, that's the work that I try to do, is to shift those mentalities. Death should not be acceptable for our kids. Our kids should be able to have a 5-year plan. When you ask a young black kid, where do you want to be what do you want to be when you grow up, or where do you want to be in 5 years? No black kid should tell you, I don't know. Because if you go ask an Indian kid, a lot of Latino kids, hell, some white kids, where do you want to be in 5 years? They have somewhat of an answer. But too many of our kids have no clue, because they're just living moment by moment, day by day, taking it however it is. And they didn't learn that on their own, because guess what? A lot of their parents and caregivers are doing the exact same thing. The healing that we have to do is multi-generational, and we have to do it. Every successful black person has people in their family who ain't successful. And those are some of the hardest people to reach. We usually reach out, we try to help them, but they just don't click all the time. But the ones that they don't help are the ones that we feel, oh, they gonna make it. And guess what? A lot of them, they don't make it. Sometimes we gotta help as many as we can, but especially those ones that do good, break that barrier even further. That's how we get more successful black folks. All right, I'm gonna stop, get off my soapbox.
Man, listen. Man, listen, man, this is some heavy stuff, man. And that's why I really wanted you to have you on the show, because again, I talked about earlier, this is about helping the community, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's entrepreneurship, relationships, mental health. This is what it's about. Last question, 2 more questions, but one question is just like, it's a question I always ask. Brandon, what impact does mental health has on you getting to the bag, or does it have any issues with you getting to the bag, getting to the money?
Oh, absolutely, man. When I don't feel well, I ain't trying to work hard, man. It's just that simple. I mean, I have those days where I'm like, man, I ain't trying to answer another email. I mean, there's people right now, I got pinned emails, I got to get back to some folks, and I know that it's going to lead to some money, but I just got so much loaded up that it's like, man, I'll get to it. It'd be Thursday by the time I answer an email from last Wednesday. And that impedes my ability to get to the bag. So we always have to make sure that our well-being is intact. And I try to do that. And part of the reason why I haven't responded to those emails is because I'm particularly just taking time away from overworking myself too. Because that's another thing. I have to be more intentional with being, with my kids. I never want to get to a place where my daughters want me to read them a book or something, and I have to say, Daddy's got to work. Like I should be able to stop what I'm doing and be able to attend to any of their needs whenever they want it, or make those intentional times. So that weighs on my mental health, as well as being able to be whole for the ones that depend on me and for myself to the best of my ability. And honestly, man, we should not have to work ourselves to death. Hard work is important, but smart work is also just as valuable. And we have to do both of those, especially in today's world where we have all these different apps and tools that help us be more sufficient. We have to be able to do that. So one thing I want to just drop on people, if you are finding yourself at a place where you are kind of stuck, or you need some help with something, there might be an app that can push you through. I would encourage you to go to the biggest university in the world that does not give out any degrees, called YouTube. You're on it right now. There's so many things that you can learn how to do, so many little tools out there, and it's just literally a few words away for you to figure it out. So in a world where everything is smart, all you have to do is be wise, and that's how we help move our mental health to a place that does allow us to continue to get those bags.
Woo! Hey, what advice would you give your 15-year-old self today?
Ooh.
That's it.
You are not going to be with that girl forever. That'd be the first thing that I'm going to tell my 15-year-old self. I thought I was going to be with this one girl forever, man. Oh, my God. Honestly, man, I didn't go too deep into my history and my background. But when I was 15, I was probably depressed, man, to be honest with you. I would tell myself that, the things that are currently happening in my life do not define who I am, and I can keep moving throughout this and listen to the people that are trying to help me. I always paid attention to people to try to help me, but I didn't trust everybody. And I think that there were some opportunities that I missed that I probably should have taken if I would have trusted those individuals. And, me growing up, I grew up in a domestic violence household. My stepdad was an abuser. I was the oldest of 3 boys. I found out he wasn't my real dad when I was 12. He was my 2 younger brothers' actual biological father. And that really weighed on me, man. It was like, when I found that out, it was like my whole world just shifted. Everything started to make sense. And I started to get angry. And I was probably angry, man, from that time at about 12 to probably when I was about 23 years old. And just never knew it. And I had the outlet of football where it was okay for me to unleash that anger. And I used to try to put people in the ambulance. Like that was my thing. When I'm on the football field, I'm trying to send somebody home in an ambulance, like that, like literally. And I had, and I was successful on a lot of game nights where I put people in ambulances. Wow. But I know that that's not right. But what was really going on with Brandon is that I was in pain, but nobody knew because I was a good football player. I was pretty much a damn nerd, man. I had like A's and B's all throughout middle school and high school. So nobody paid attention to Brandon because he could get a job. He was somewhat quiet. He played football. I was doing all the right things, but inside I was a mess. And that's what happens to so many young Black kids is that the ones that we don't pay attention to, we probably should because they're hurting. Usually we pay attention to the kids that are causing all the ruckus, but it's all our children that need the help. So if I could go back to that young 15-year-old Brandon, I'll say, look, man, you like her, but she ain't the only one. And I would say that anger that you have today isn't about you. It's about something else. Keep pushing, young man, because you're going to be something great.
And there you have it, everybody. Listen, I know you guys felt that. The information that he dropped, all the jewels, the knowledge. Brandon, thank you so much for coming on. I know, Brandon, we're going to have you back. Family.
Anytime you're ready.
Y'all want to have Brandon back? Put some thumbs up in the chat or something. Put some thumbs up because I know we're going to have you back. Where can people follow you? Because I believe you have your own podcast too, correct?
Yeah. You can follow me here on YouTube. If you type in Brandon Jones and Jegna, that's Jegna, you'll see me pop up. You can follow my channel, the Jegna Institute. I have a podcast with my homeboy Aaron that we do pretty much twice a month, but we're about to gear it up to do it weekly. So you definitely want to check in where we talk about issues like what we talked about today and just life and success and helping and family and all that. I mean, we just have good conversation about things that are going on. Also, you can follow me on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, whatever you feel like is necessary. But if you want to follow me on Facebook, just put BY Brandon Jones. So if you put by Brandon Jones and search that, you should see me pop up. I'm by Brandon Jones on Instagram, Twitter, and then on LinkedIn, you can just search Brandon Jones, Minnesota, and I should pop up there as well. I'll be honest with you, my Instagram is trash. I really ever post, but at one point in time in life, I will start posting there more. But if you want to connect with me, definitely check me out on Facebook. I'm more over there than anything.
Your Facebook is by Brandon Jones, BY Brandon Jones?
Yep, by Brandon Jones. You search that, you should find me.
Okay, and then I'll make sure I put the podcast link. Well, I'll get with you and put the podcast link because once we do the upload back, the replay, we'll have everything on there. But listen, hey, again, everybody who joined tonight, thank you guys so much for participating. Thank you to the family who sent in the questions. Thank you to the community who sent in the questions because this conversation was needed. And Brandon, again, man, thank you so much for having this conversation. Thank you for carving out the time. And thank you for working on me, man. I appreciate you, brother, because I wouldn't be able to be in this seat having this conversation had I not talked to you, man. So yeah, you are the truth. You are the truth. Thank you. Listen, we're going to get up out of here. Thank you, guys. Until next time, make sure you like and subscribe at Jarvis Hill Projected. Check out Brother Brandon's podcast, The Jegna and the Thinker. He's on Facebook. Follow this brother for this information he dropped tonight. He does it all day, every day. So listen, thank you guys. Have a good night.
Absolutely. Take care, everybody.